everybody, it's Callie, your independent Scentsy consultant, and today we are going to talk about taxes from the perspective of somebody who is starting a small business, is not an accountant, did not go to school for business, does not have a family who's in the business realm. The only advantage I have is maybe because I've done my taxes for the last couple years on my own. Simple forms, simple taxes. So I want you guys to hear my perspective of this as we're starting the new year, as I'm getting into tax season, and some of the things that have helped me kind of prepare for this moment. Now, direct sales is one of those, it's just one of those things where a lot of people join for the discount and because they love the product, right? Like I did the same thing. Back in 2010, I joined Scentsy because I absolutely fell in love with the product. At that time, online ordering wasn't really a thing, and so you had to know a consultant, and it was just easier for me to know one on my own. So I joined. I didn't have the mindset to really open up a small business. I just thought, okay, well, I'll get the product for cheap. You know, I did some vendor shows. I was selling to family and friends. Sometimes I was giving them my discount. Sometimes I wasn't. So in the back of my head, I always said, oh, this would be nice to, you know, for it to be a little bit of a side hustle and make some money. But I didn't treat it as a business. I didn't deduct taxes. I didn't check my expenses. So what I was really probably doing is paying more than I normally would have. And I think that's why a lot of people quit during the direct sell business, because they end up spending more than they would have had having just been a customer to begin with. So my mindset is completely switched. I am on the verge of creating a small business, maybe even a very large business out of Scentsy. And so in order to do that and to change my mindset, I had to do some research on how to run a business, how to run a small business, be the CEO of my business. But that's the beauty of direct sales, is that you have an overarching corporation that does a lot of the marketing for you. They're creating and produced a product that's absolutely amazing, regardless of the direct selling company you're a part of. But there's certain things that I need to take care of as a consultant, and that's the small business side of the house. So talking through all the things that I've done, like I said, my history was 2010. I don't have any business background whatsoever. A lot of it's just been off of YouTube. So first thing I did was I researched and Googled a lot of things like, hey, small business owners, in particular direct sales small business, because it is a little bit different than having like a pop-up store down in the mall, or having some sort of like a bakery, because there's so many different things I don't have to worry about in direct sales business versus someone else who's opening a small one downtown. So when you're researching, make sure you're researching direct sales specific stuff, if that's the avenue that you're in. And so what I found was people were using different apps and software. I learned that I should be tracking my miles, especially when I'm delivering customer orders. So, which I do. I use my own vehicle and I go back and forth. And so I needed to track miles. Well, I'm not the type that can keep writing things down. Like I'll lose the piece of paper, right? I was thought about, well, I can put it on my notepad, but then I would forget to check the odometer, and I'd have to, check Google Maps. How far is this distance from here? It was such a pain in the butt. It wasn't even worth doing. So someone had said, well, hey, try Mile IQ. Now here's a caveat. I'm also not getting paid for any of these. I'm just telling you what I used. So I downloaded and researched what's called Mile IQ. It is a software app that basically tracks your whereabouts, and it can tell when you're in your vehicle, and it can tell when you go from place to place. So after a day's log, it'll say, hey, you went from this spot to this spot. There's a Google map. It picks addresses. You can save a certain place so that you're not just getting an address. So like when I see my address here, I can rename it home. So that way when I look on my sheet, it'll say, hey, you went from home to Starbucks. Was this a personal or was this a business thing? Okay, you swipe to the side and see it's a personal expense. And then you can even categorize it further if it's medical, if it was an errand, if it was exercising, whatever it was, right? If you need to then break down your personal expenses too for any reason. I don't know if I have to yet. Someone can tell me if I do, but so far I haven't been recategorizing any of that. Maybe medical is what I've been clicking once in a while if I go to the dentist or something. But so far I haven't had a reason to have to break that down. But if I were to swipe to the left, I think it's left, and hit a business expense, maybe I met a future customer there or a future consultant there and had a meeting. Okay, then you can choose, okay, yes, this was what it's for, and then you put in a little note like, yep, had a meeting with a team member, had a meeting with a customer, had a meeting with a future consultant, or whatever it was. Sometimes that's the case if I go to Dollar Tree or to Target, if I meet someone up at school or wherever I'm working. If I'm delivering orders or having conversations related to my business, I put it as a business expense, okay? And since I'm in my vehicle, every time I fill up with fuel, that's part of it's kind of like a partial business, personal, expense. the cool thing about this next thing I'm going to tell you is that it breaks all that down for me. So MileIQ was nice because it tracked my whereabouts. Now I know that's kind of scary in our day and age, but that's exactly what I needed it to do. I needed it to remember where I went. I don't have to worry about odometers because it tracks the amount of miles that I went. And it's just nice to see personal and business expenses already plugged in there. And then at the end of the month, I can download the report, and then it's just nice fancy spreadsheet that tells me the whereabouts, where I went, and the notes, how many miles it was. And so when I do my taxes, I can tell exactly how much of my car use was for business and how much was for personal, which is fantastic. Okay. Now, so that's what I started with. I think it was like $6 or $7 a month for it to do it, which was completely worth it for, I mean, you don't realize how much money you save for that. Other things that I also are deducting for my taxes is every oil change. If I have to change the windshield wipers, all of the car maintenance, they're going to take a percentage of that as a business deduction depending on how much I use my car for, personal or business. So that's why it's like you got to have yourself in this mindset of how much could I really save having a small business, okay? Then, while I was researching these things, I found MileIQ. That was fantastic. That's exactly what I needed to do for miles. Well, then I needed a system to figure out all of the other things that I was buying, all of the envelopes, the labels, the extra inventory for my business. If I was purchasing software, all of this stuff. And so I actually went and talked to an accountant thinking I'm going to have to need an accountant that is going to run all my numbers for me, right? Because I have a friend who makes good, big money, and she's like, this is the person I go to, or this area, and they do my stuff for me. Well, I'm not making nearly the amount of money that this girl is, but and good for her. But what he basically told me is start with QuickBooks. So again, I'm not getting paid for QuickBooks. This is exactly what he told me to do. He goes, this is going to do everything you need it to do for a small business startup. You can always increase, but it literally does what you want it to do. And I said, okay. So I went back home and I researched QuickBooks, and I took me about a month to finally sign up for it, but I finally did. And I have what's called QuickBooks Self-Employed. Okay, so when I went through all of the different kinds of QuickBooks that it offers, QuickBooks Self-Employed gave me what I needed to do. It broke down, it's for direct sales and a couple of the other small businesses, so it's not worrying about all of the big corporation things that other tax people need to worry about, right? It also allows me to do things on my desktop computer and also gives me an app on my phone. Okay, so with QuickBooks, I have connected the credit card that I use to make pretty much all of my purchases, and I have a separate checking account that I put money into. So when I get commissions checks or people pay me for their products, I put it into a checking account, and I also pay my credit card off with that checking account for just the things that I bought. Now, someday maybe I'll get a separate credit card for my business stuff. Someday maybe I won't. Right now I'm able to make sure I separate them, and I'm not having too much trouble combining personal and business expenses. Like I pretty much know what's what. But someday I might choose to do that, But right now I just have one credit card for both business and personal, and I just separate my stuff and then pay for just my business stuff out of that particular checking account, and it's easy peasy. So both of those accounts are linked into QuickBooks. So what QuickBooks now does when I log in, it finds all the transactions on my credit card and all the transactions in that checking account. Okay, so that's where it can get a little muddy and probably a little bit easier if I had a credit card that was separate, because then I would only get the transactions for my business. But I like getting the points for everything in one shot, and I like only having to pay one credit card off a year. Anyway, but that's just me. Anyway, so go through the transactions, and just like in the mileage part where I can swipe for personal and swipe for business, I can do the exact same thing in that transaction. So if I went to Starbucks and I can say, nope, this was a personal expense, okay, then it'll take it away. If this was a business expense, okay, what did you use it for? It was a business dinner or it was a meeting. Okay, here's fuel. All my fuel and all my vehicle stuff are all on the business side, because it's going to figure out what's business, what's personal, okay? Because it asks you, is your vehicle used for just personal stuff or just business stuff? And I said it's both. So it's going to automatically configure the percentage I use for my business and the percentage I use for my personal. So I put everything in there. I don't have to break it down, do the math. That's what the QuickBooks software is going to do all for me. So it's fantastic. Same thing with my house. You guys can see, like, I have one room completely dedicated to my business. 100%. I've taken one bedroom. I have my inventory in here. I have all of my setup in here, everything in here. It's not a spare bedroom, nothing. It's completely and solely designed for this business. So I measured. I did the square footage of this particular room, and then I put into QuickBooks what that room size is and what the square footage of my actual home is, and it did the math. Now, in some cases, you might, it has two different categories. You can either get, I think, like $5 a square foot or 5% a square foot, something like that, $5 a square foot deduction, or it'll take a percentage. And once it starts doing the math, it'll tell me which one is the bigger tax deduction. So that means I get to put in how much I pay for mortgage or rent. I can figure out how much I pay for water and electricity, internet. My cell phone that I use, okay, is both personal and business, but QuickBooks divides it and figures it out and what the percentage is for me. So all of those little bills that I have that just gives me a place to live is also something I can deduct a small portion of, because part of where I live is also my small business. Do you see where I'm getting at? Nowhere else would I ever be able to deduct even 10% of what I pay for mortgage and bills and stuff. If I can deduct that on my taxes, that's a big win. You know, and just because I have a small business, and that's a fantastic thing. So if you are starting a direct sales and you get nervous when it says, hey, if you make over a certain amount of commissions, you have to file that in your taxes, don't panic about that, because owning a small business also lets you have tax deductions on top of it. So it can be a really good thing for you if you're kind of teetering towards some of those higher brackets just based on the business that you're in. So it's really cool. So QuickBooks, so I said I used MileIQ. Well, what I learned when I opened a QuickBooks account is that it also tracks mileage for me. So I was like, awesome. So I'd already started with MileIQ, and I wanted to continue that because I understood it. So I did that for the last 4 months or so, and I wanted to try QuickBooks to see if they were kind of same. Well, what I've noticed is QuickBooks does essentially the same thing that I want it to do. Excuse me. So I'm going to cancel out my MileIQ account because everything is in this software. Now in QuickBooks, I know it's, you know, if you're starting a small business, especially if you felt like, hey, I want to make a little bit extra money, if you're tight on cash, it might seem a little bit scary to pay for these things, but I promise you it's going to be worth it. And it's a tax deduction because you're using it for your business. So I started out, when I did QuickBooks Self-Employed, they give you the first 3 months half off. So I paid $7 per month, okay, for the last couple of months. So then my next one, if I continue to pay monthly, it's going to be $15 every single month. Now you can go and pay for the advanced account where it gives you a free, I think, federal and state filing account. Well, I'm just going to pay that. When I do my taxes, I'll pay for that anyway. So I'm just doing the monthly one right now. But you can buy a package where it includes the filing for you if you want to, and then it's going to be a little bit more expensive. I just have the basic version. Maybe next year I'll switch, I don't know. Anyway, so now I'm getting to my, my last month of half off. Now I'm gonna probably move into just paying for a whole year of it at a time, which would be $160. So now it drops down to a little over $13 per month if I pay for a full year of it. I like that system for a couple reasons. One, it's a little bit cheaper, and two, when I'm going through my transactions, I'm not finding QuickBooks every single month and having to do the deduction and switch it out. It's one bill, one time, I have it paid off. It's not having to come out of my account every single time, but not everybody's in that boat where they can put down $160 down for a software, so I get it, okay? But just know that's how much I'm paying for a system that keeps track of all of these things for me. It's a cost that I can then deduct for a business expense at the end of the year, and it's been a lifesaver. So QuickBooks Self-Employed, I started with MileIQ, like I said, but now I'm switching back to QuickBooks, so it's doing everything I want. So I'm going to save that extra $5 or $6 that I was spending on MileIQ. I have a separate checking account for all of my business. Remember, checking accounts are free, so it's a separate everything, and it'll tie right into QuickBooks. For my receipt system, this is the next thing I was going to tell you. I don't have a fancy one. I literally just have envelopes. So beginning of the year, here's where I keep my envelopes. It says January 2021. So in here, I keep these in my car for the month, and then every time I go to a store or a hard copy, then I just slip the receipt right in here, and then I bring it inside every 1 week or 2 weeks or so, and then I go through my transactions on my QuickBooks thing, because sometimes it takes a little bit for like a checking account. It might take like 2-3 days for an account to show up, whether it's your credit card or your checking. So that's why I wait about a week or 2 weeks, and then I go through my system, and then it'll say, hey, what did you buy at the dollar store? Well, everything I buy at the dollar store is typically for my business, right? Whether it's paper or thank you cards or whatever. So I take a picture of the receipt, and I put it goes right into QuickBooks through the app. and then I tell you what it's for, make a little note, business, it's done. Okay, and I put that off to the side. Then the next thing, you know, Target. Now when I go to places where I'm buying both business and personal stuff, I just go through like the checking account side on my own and I just split it. That way I'm not making anybody wait. Like I'm at my own little counter. I split what my personal stuff is, I split what my business stuff is, and then I do 2 transactions. That way I don't have to worry about splitting the cost of the receipt. But if you forget and everything's on one, then it's too easy. You can go into the thing and it'll say business or personal, or it gives you a split option. And you just go in there and you add up what was your business account, what was your personal, you type it in, same receipt gets published, and then it'll literally split your stuff in your QuickBooks. It's so, guys, it's so easy. Like I said, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a business person. It's just a matter of keeping track of stuff. So here was my January one. Anything I bought online, like Amazon, for example, or any of the stuff from Scentsy or whatever direct sales business you're in, I'll print that and I'll make a hard copy of this. But on my desktop is when I just download it and I have like a Google Drive file where I have all those things in there, all my statements for my mortgage, all my whatever, and I just add it. Okay, it's just like taking a picture of it. There I just find on my computer and I add it. So all of my stuff is in there, all the receipts, all the transactions, and then it gives you this big fancy report if you want. It's how much you've made, how much you've spent, and just gives you a breakdown if you're in the hole, if you're making money, and everything in between. Like, it's just so easy and so cool, you guys. Like, QuickBooks is the way to go. Like, now if you like another system, use it. If it's doing what you need it to do, use it, okay? If you just like handwriting everything down and handing to an accountant to do it, use it. It's really whatever's going to make you successful at this. So, all right, and then March, I already got my March folder ready. And then when I'm done with the month, then I have it in a drawer in my office, and I'll save it till the end. And I'll save probably the next, typically for taxes anyway, save the last 5 years worth of stuff, just in case I were to get audited or something was wrong with my taxes or whatever. I have 5 years of paper copy stuff. And then I just chuck the 6 years when the new stuff comes in. So I think that is all it. I talked about, you know, like I said, I researched a lot on YouTube. I figured out what other people were doing. So you guys watching this is researching on YouTube. I talked to a real consultant. It was a free consult. They told me the same thing, what I had to look for. You know, I started out with MileIQ. I've now transitioned just to QuickBooks Self-Employed, which does the mileage for me. Credit cards, checking accounts I talked about, and then my receipt system. So if there's more that I find out about this, I'll figure it out and I'll sure share it with you. But I wanted you to get a perspective from somebody who's probably in your same boat. The only advantage I have is that I've done taxes before for my own simple taxes. So if you've never done that, I can see where taxes can be a little bit scary, but I promise there's already systems out there that'll talk you through it. So anyway, I hope this helped. Please comment below if you found this helpful, or if you have any other ideas to share the wealth. I'm a big proponent of you know, always learning and always growing. So if you know a system that's really worked for you, please share it. So if other people are watching, they can read the comments too and figure it out. But I will link the self-employed link below so that you know where to go to do your research. I'll link the MileIQ one down there too. But like again, QuickBooks really has done everything I needed to do. So hope you guys have a great day, do great things, make good choices, and please contact me if you need anything. Bye.